Hello there, this one is called Deception. So I've been waiting a little while to make this one. And I want to start off by saying something that Marshall Mathers said in one of his tracks some years ago. Every day of my life I've been lied to. You could hear the anger. You could hear the rage in those words. And such a truth there. Because every day of our lives we have been lied to, haven't we? So I want to take you right back to the dawn of the television age. Because I've been around long enough to have witnessed when the television became not something that was only for the rich, but was something for the common people. I was 5 and my dad went out and still make you laugh. He didn't buy a television those days. He rented a television. And what I was tuning into this morning to prepare for this film was the adverts. So there's one particular one, and it goes like this: 1,001 treats, a big carpet for less than half a crown. For less than half a crown. What a load of bollocks. That was a carpet cleaner. And the other one that came to me forcefully was a bottle of disinfectant with little birds flying around it, tweeting with rather sickening castrato female voices, "Hip call, hip call, hip call." And the point is, that is stuck in my programmed consciousness all those years later. So that shows that when it comes to deception, 2020 is nothing new in a way, and yet in another way we really have crossed through a portal, just as I'm about to do now. But this is the opposite experience of what we're going through. So this is a portal into an arboretum. There are rabbits, there are birds, and the place is awash with beautiful plants. Before TV existed, there were still adverts, obviously in newspapers and magazines, and even more obviously in huge hoardings, great big signs with their mind control programming deception splatters across. And I do find it particularly a sick and twisted irony that in the modern times a really cool thing to do is to get to a really ancient advert from some product and to put it in your hipster cafe to show how cool you are, or various other institutions, all of which are closed at the moment, so you can't see them, which is kind of bittersweet irony. So there's a name I want to give you, and the name is Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays, relative of one of the great fathers of the psychiatric movement. Go to the description for all these details, it's all in there. I'm just needing to pause and just drink in this view, because what I'm doing is I'm providing an antidote to all this deception which I'm talking about. So then back into TV, and then up into the present time. I'm flipping around through the time streams here. In the days when it used to be possible to go to festivals because they were allowed, I can remember sitting around the campfires loads and loads and loads of times with different people, and people would start to sing the songs that they know, and If I was to lead with a song that I knew, it would be this one. I'm gross and perverted, I'm obsessed and deranged. I have existed for years, but very little has changed. I'm the tool of the government and industry too, and I am destined to rule and regulate you. I may be vile and pernicious, but you can't look away. I'll make you think I'm delicious with the stuff that I say. I'm the best you can get. Have you guessed me yet? I'm the slime oozing out from your TV set. Da, 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 da. And you have been stuffed into my mould, and you will do as you are told until the rights to you are sold. Da, 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 da. And so it goes on. And bless Frank Zappa for that one. All those decades ago. So television has experienced such a hold in people's lives over the last half century and then some, and people have taken it so for granted. So the point that I'm making is that all this deception is not new. It's been around for such a long time. And Edward Bernays, let's get back to this Edward Bernays character, he was a person that realised that if you get an individual human being with a consciousness, then that's one thing. But you get a whole bunch of humans together and they create what you could call a group consciousness, a group mind. Let's just slip into Star Trek and the Borg, a hive mind, if you will. So what he realised is that manipulation of the hive mind is actually incredibly easy once you know a few basic rules and techniques. And we've seen it very, very obviously throughout the 20th and now in the 21st century, this ability to control people through techniques of manipulation. So I do highly recommend the link I provided for you about Edward Bernays. It's really helpful, and I want to say shout out to Really Graceful, who was the first person that mentioned Edward Bernays. There's a lot there that's of value. So if you're watching this, then you, and most likely your immediate ancestors, have been exposed to so much deception that it's hard to even know where to start, isn't it? And that's the essential problem. Every day of my life I've been lied to, says Marshall Mathers. What a deep truth is that? And it's why when I was opening a social media account and they asked me my favourite film, I put The Matrix. And it still is my favourite film because there's all those parts of that film that I dislike intensely, all the gratuitous violence. And that's another thing, isn't it? All the gratuitous violence, all the things that are out there to denigrate and make light of the power of sex and family. It's all part of the deception. No wonder there's a worldwide wash with the porn, because that's all part of the worldwide deception as well. It's all about the illusion of freedom. And this is what the capitalist societies have particularly done, is they've chosen to promote this idea that we're so free by being given so much choice. And it's a funny thing when I think about it, because like when I was a little kid, if you could have said to me, oh well, you know, there's this box in the corner of the room, and if you touch the right buttons and you can look at images of people without their clothes on from all over the world, and if you touch some other buttons you can watch people doing this sacred act which is called sex, and it's like, what? You've got to be kidding me. And yet that is now so commonplace, and that's been around for decades, hasn't it? So we are in a situation in the world where we have been exposed to so much deception for so long. The denigration of the family, the cheapening of sex, so many things we've been exposed to. And one of my personal favourites is when I see someone walking down the street and they're wearing a t-shirt advertising a product. And as someone I used to know would say to anyone who would be bothered to listen, he would walk up to that person and say, how much are they paying you to advertise their product? Knowing perfectly well what the answer was, but they were doing all this for free. So deception, 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 going through the layers of deception. And then I want to bring us right up to 2020, because this has been the most extraordinary experiment. They've been playing with these tools, as you can gather, for at least 100 years, ever since there's been an advertising hoarding that could go up. And I do want to make reference to one, because it's also relevant. There was a huge advertising hoarding in the 20th century, and it was just a picture of some purple silk which someone had taken a pair of scissors or a knife and just slashed it so it was cut. And anyone who was walking down the street and they saw that, they would know exactly what it meant. It was an advert for a brand of cigarettes. And that was like in the 70s, 80s time where that was happening. So it already reached a point where such adverts were making use of fairly sophisticated mind control techniques, in as much as they didn't even need to give you the name of the product because you're doing all that in your head. Such clever stuff. So here we are, and we have been fed so many lies we hardly even know where to begin, do we? And I do just find that the British Broadcasting Corporation is what I meant to say, gets 6 million from the BG Foundation, the BG and M Foundation. If you don't know what I mean by that, again, look at the description. I'm sure most of you do. So, yeah, what a joke. So, what used to be regarded to be a paragon of, objectivity, never ever was. And it's just all coming out piece by piece, bit by bit. So, this year, let's see what we can get them to do. Let's conjure something up and let us just bombard them with so much. There's a word that they used to use, isn't there, during wartime? We used to talk about propaganda. So propaganda is really highly organised deception. So what we'll do is we'll just hit them with so much propaganda, so much deception, and we'll throw this into all the media streams. So it's going to be in the mainstream media, the social media. We're going to talk it up. And in the UK, we had a little practice run about this, which did used to amuse me vastly, which is I like to go into a supermarket in the days when you didn't have to queue. And I would look at the newspaper headlines. That's all I was interested in. Didn't ever want to buy one, because I knew it was just everything in my life, every day of my life I've been lied to. I knew that's what it was all about, but I like to look at the headlines. And this was during the Brexit era, and the game was to see how many months, which then turned into over 3 years, can they have as the main headline something to do with this thing called Brexit. So that was a really clear opportunity for us to all just to see just how much they can go on repeating something. And I used to feel so sorry for these poor hacks, the people who have to write the stories and come up with the headlines. Can you imagine that for a job, just coming up with the same old crap for over 3 years? So that in the UK was a real obvious opportunity for us to just see how absurd and ridiculous it could go. But what we've had ever since then is the blitzkrieg. That's a nice word to use from World War II. A blitzkrieg of information designed to put fear into people. And I've made a film called Fear Soup, which goes into the subject in a bit more detail. So we have been lied to such an extent that so many people are so frightened that some of them actually do as they're told. And that was a really big step for this year, because this is the year that the gloves came off, and it was simply a matter of, well, let's just issue commands, let's just command these people to do something. and let's just see how many of them do it. And so we've been exposed to this situation, and we're halfway through the year now, and we have all these phrases, all these terms that they use. And for months, of course, the term was stay at home. I think the term now, if they could get it into the right number, would be out and demonstrate, something like that, wouldn't it? So we've reached a point that we are just commanded to do things as a human race, and a large number of people will just go and do exactly what they're told. And one of the most absurd ones of all for me was, there I was minding my own business, and suddenly all the people in the flats around me were out of their balconies and they were clapping. I had absolutely no idea why they were doing this. I realised it must be a new exercise in mind control, deception. Let's just deceive these people to such an extent, we'll just give them a command and they'll just do it. And so they did. And it was very, very ironic for me, because I did work in the NHS when I was 19, and I worked in it in different periods in my life. And there was a time it really was a National Health Service, and it was free at the point of use. It's still just, well, let's not even go there about the point of use. It's now closed down at the point of use, mostly for so many people. And it was a breakthrough in its time. So instead of having to pay a doctor vast amount of money and getting yourself impoverished and going into debt, suddenly it's like all these medical facilities were open to you. Wonderful, really great. And yet what's happened now is that the NHS has become a tool for deception, and actually it's a complete joke, because so much of the NHS has been privatised. There's very little left. And I just want to make mention of my daughter, because what I've come to realise from listening to people who are actually working in the NHS in the UK is that if you used to have something wrong with you, what you do is you go to the doctor. Well, you don't do that anymore, because you go onto the websites. You've probably been mind controlled and deceived enough to just realise that's the way you do these things these days, and it comes up with a super dumb questionnaire, and they ask you all these dumb questions, and they will then get a doctor to email you, or if you're really lucky they might phone you, and they'll just refer you to someone else. So it's reached a point now that people in the UK who are in a really bad state, who really need a general practitioner, that's not forthcoming. And I know this because my daughter is a community nurse. So what's happening in the UK, you've got the so-called COVID wards, which are occupied in the hospitals. You've got the non-COVID wards, which are not completely but largely empty, with medical staff with nothing to do. And you've got people like my daughter, vastly understaffed, doing all the work in the community that the doctors used to do but are just now refusing to do. And this is what she said, the community nursing staff actually have to fight very hard to find or persuade a GP to go out to treat someone, to consult with them, that really need the help. Very, very difficult to do. So it's a beautiful irony that while people are clapping for the NHS, it's pretty much been dismantled quietly without them even realising that all the rights are gone. And of course, for most of us, the opportunity to go to a dentist no longer exists. And so it goes on. Ah, such beautiful plants. So this is what I do. I keep connection with nature. And this helps me when I'm dealing with, frankly, what is institutionalised global insanity. So you've got people commanded to stand on their balconies, people commanded to stay at home, people commanded to go out and demonstrate, get involved in a bit of violence, whatever, and they just do as they're told. And that goes back to Frank Zappa's lyrics again, and you will do as you are told until the rights to you are sold. Yeah, what a strange world we're living in. So it has reached a point where the ultimate normal is blind obedience. And we seem to have really three categories of people. And the ones that make my heart cry out in sadness but also in great anger are the ones that are the mask wearers. And I just see the word slave printed on the front of each mask when I see a mask wearer. Because I know that person's terrified, and I know that what I must not do is to express my opinion to that person, because they're already so frail, so delicate, so fragile. The last thing I want to do is to add to the terror they're already experiencing. Which is why I do like to give people space, even though I know the whole idea of a space between people is just all part of the deception. All part of cutting us off from each other, all part of amping up the fear, because that's the game in 2012. Just how frightened can we get people to be? Just how obedient can we get them to be? That's what it's all about. And so here we are, we're halfway through the year, and there'll be more to come. So back to the three kinds: is the ones which do as they're told, which is the first kind. I don't know what percentages there are for any of those. And the next ones are the ones that realise that everything they've been told by the mainstream media is just, and also a lot of the so-called alternative media, there's so many lies there, there's so much deception, there's so much untruth there. And then that can give rise to the person that therefore becomes very angry. So that's something else. You've got the fear response as the one, or you've got the anger response as the other. People who actually want to go around and slap someone who's wearing a mask, whatever it might happen to be. You can tell that these are the sorts of things which is causing people to get to the point they're going in and burning cities. And it's all not what it seems, isn't it? That's the really sad thing about all this. And so that's the other thing, really. And there's a third group of people that they're not slavishly following the conventional commands. They're not just full of anger and rage against the people that are following conventional commands, but they're actually just feeling a huge amount of compassion for human beings, humanity and the human race at the moment, because this is a very strange time to be alive. But my point is, and that's what I was looking for. I was looking for that hill there because it's covered in cloud. So it's like the clouds of deception are covering humanity at the moment. That really is where we're up to. And everything that you can do to keep yourself clear of the deception is a step in the right direction. And my feeling is that by going out into nature every day, this is one of the best antidotes. And let's just say a little bit about the internet. The internet was created by the military-industrial complex, apparently, and it was really not designed for our best interests. And I really have watched this, even with people doing shamanic training. They've got access and abilities to access their guides, so they can get information directly. They know how to contact the plants and get information from the plants. And what are they choosing to do? They're choosing to Google everything. So that is perhaps one of the greatest deceptions that's happened to the human race, is this idea that, as a young child once said to me with a smile on his face, Google knows everything. And one of my great delights is very occasionally I discover another example of Google hasn't a clue. Google's got it wrong. Google simply doesn't know. And it's a strange thing to realise, but we've got the technosphere, which is the term for the internet, and we've got what we call the noosphere, which is what you are able to witness as you look at this view, because the whole of nature is full of information. And what I'm recommending people do is to break free of the cultural trance, immerse yourselves in nature, and discover and realise that there is so much information in the growing of plants, in the singing of birds, in the movements of the clouds across the sky, and just to feel how all the deception gets washed away by these natural phenomena, and to know that this is where true peace can be found. So if you like this, I invite you to touch the like button. If you want to see more, I invite you to touch the subscribe button. And if you want to be informed when the next one comes out, I invite you to touch the notification button. And in the description there is a link if you wish to help me to continue to live and make films. You can put in a contribution to my PayPal. So thank you very much for coming on this journey with me really early this morning. It's just gone 7 o'clock. Thank you very much. All the love.